This is Michael, and welcome to Basic Options 2 Leverage. So, why do we buy options? Why options over stock? And the answer is leverage. Now, if you think about leverage in terms of other things where you would use less capital to gain more value, like a house, you could buy a $500,000 house with cash if you had it, or you could use the power of leverage, otherwise known as a mortgage, and put, say, 5% down on that house. So that would be $25,000 down, and then you pay off the rest in the form of a mortgage payment. That's leverage. That's utilizing $25,000 of your capital in order to leverage up to a $500,000 piece of property. Well, similarly with options, you can buy an options contract and control 100 shares of stock, have the value of that options contract grow, and make a fantastic gain with a fraction of the cost or capital needed versus buying the actual stock itself. So let's look at an example, and this will be super clear. So again, number one reason why we buy options or sell options versus stock is leverage. So first example here, you could buy 100 shares of Apple, $200 a share. 100 shares would cost you $20,000. Or you could buy one call option. And in this example, we're going to use a December monthly call. 195 is the strike price. It's a December monthly, but look at the price of one options contract. $9.10 is the premium. Again, you multiply times 100 to give you your actual cost because there's 100 shares. So $910 versus $20,000 of capital. That is leverage. So again, in scenario number one, we buy 100 shares of Apple at $200 a share. That's $20,000. And scenario number two, we're going to buy one call option, one options contract. 195 is the strike price. Expiration is December monthly, and the premium is $9.10, or a total cost to you of $910. Look at the leverage. $910 versus $20,000. And look what happens. So in this scenario, Apple is trading around $200. Okay, this will make it super clear. Apple's currently trading at 200, and in scenario number one, you decide to buy 100 shares, cost you $20,000. Apple, over the next 2 weeks, goes up to $210, and then you sell it. So if you bought it for 200 and it went up to 210 and you sold it, not including commissions, you would have made $10 times 100 shares. You'd make $1,000, right? So you made $1,000 on a $20,000 investment. That's a 5% gain. Well, not bad. If you did that every single week, that'd be fantastic. It'd be fantastic if you had this right here. 20,000 in capital. Or scenario number two is buying a 195 call for $910 or $910. Same thing. Apple goes from 200 to 210, and you sell your option before expiration. Basically, you're flipping the contract. Okay? So how do you calculate your profit? If you remember from the first video, you take the price that the underlying is currently at minus the strike price and the premium. So we'll do those in two stages. So it's currently trading at 210. You had a 195 strike contract. So you subtract 195 from what it's currently at, gives you $15 of profit on that contract, minus the premium you paid for the contract, which was $910. Okay, that leaves you $5.90 of profit in the contract. Again, times 100, or $590 of profit, 64.8% gain. Look at the difference between this. 5% gain versus 64.8. You didn't have to risk $20,000 or put up that kind of capital. You only had to put up 910. And again, 64.8% return on investment. That is leverage. Now, there are a couple of things you should be aware of regarding options. Number one, as we've said, options do have expiration dates, so you have to watch them. You can't just buy and forget it like you can with stock. Stock, you can just hold indefinitely. You own it until you sell it. But an option has an actual expiration date. You have to keep an eye on the expiration date. You want to sell that contract before expiration. So that is something to be aware of. Number two is volatility. We're going to get into that later. Volatility contributes to the price of an option, sometimes in a good way, sometimes not in a good way, but it can affect the option in a very significant way, and you can use that to your benefit, especially when you're selling premium. But that's for another conversation. Options, as I mentioned when we were talking about delta, they don't increase dollar for dollar. So, when you buy a share of Apple and it goes up $1, well, your value of that share went up $1. With options, doesn't work that way. So they don't increase dollar for dollar like stocks do. Something to be aware of. And the two best things in the world, options trading, is you can grow a small account much faster than buying or selling stock. You don't need as much capital. You can grow that account very quickly. And probably the best part about options, I would say, is risk. Your risk is defined. So if you remember, we had to spend $910 on that one options contract, and that's a pretty expensive options contract, but that's your total risk. If Apple drops to $100, the most you could ever lose is the premium that you paid. Now, you might decide, in terms of your own risk tolerance, well, I don't want to lose more than 50% of what I spend. So you could sell this contract once you've lost half that value. If Apple dives and you're going to lose money, at some point you could decide, you know what, when I'm down $400 on this trade, I'm out. So you could preserve your capital for the next trade. But the most you could ever lose is the premium paid. When you buy a call or when you buy a put, the premium paid is the max risk that you can take. The risk is defined. Okay? And that is leverage. Thanks for listening, and I can't wait to talk to you again in the next video.